I'm Michelle Arthur, Executive Director of the Saratoga County History Center, welcoming you to the virtual opening of our new exhibition, IndusTREE. Here in upstate New York, many millions of trees surround us and share our space. We may think of them as potential shade, keeping us comfortable on a sunny day. Perhaps that the oxygen they produce sustains us. But what you might not realize is that daily life as we have created it in the northeastern United States would not be possible without trees. If you look around the space where you are sitting right now, you may see a desk, a table, or chairs made from wood, 4 walls made with wood either inside or on the outside, pieces of paper, and wooden pencils. Perhaps you had a glass of orange juice with your breakfast, or an apple with your lunch, or dabbed tea tree oil on a skin ailment today. We use trees and their products for shelter, communication, transportation, food, and medicine. Tonight's presentation, as well as the exhibition itself, has been divided into these 4 thematic areas: communication, shelter, transportation, food, and medicine. We are fortunate to have a wealth of material culture documenting daily life and industrial practices available to us. Loans from the Corinth Museum, Town of Malta, and private collections round out the holdings of our Brookside Museum to give you, our virtual visitors, an insightful new look at our relationship with this ever-present life form. IndusTREE, a collaborative effort between the members of our local history community and SCHC. Tonight, you will hear some of the members of our staff and volunteer team share the highlights of their research and their personal favorite tidbits in pre-recorded video presentations. Joining us will be Ann Clothier, Rachel Clothier, Paul Peralt, Jim Richmond, and Patricia Sanders. The comment box will be open so that our presenters can answer your questions live, during, and after the pre-recorded videos, which will flow back to back. We're able to provide programs and exhibitions such as this one, thanks to the generosity of a Humanities New York Cares grant, our community sponsors, and our members, like you. Thank you very much for your support. I hope that you enjoy this presentation and visit the exhibition. It can be found on our website, www.brooksidemuseum.org. Thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Hello, my name is Pat Sanders and I'm a volunteer at the Saratoga County Historical Society at Brookside. We would like to introduce you to our exhibit on trees, how they contribute to our daily lives yesterday and today, and how they have provided us with herbal remedies and food sources. In this short introduction, I will be discussing just the herbal remedy of the willow tree. Herbal remedies have been around for hundreds of years. Herbal practitioners can be found in many cultures around the world. One of the trees used in their practice yesterday and today is the willow tree. The willow tree typically grows near the edges of streams. It has a furrowed bark and spear-like leaf. Found in Europe, United Kingdom, and the United States, the willow tree was used by Native Americans and early settlers to North America. How can a tree provide us with an herbal remedy? Good question. I've always wondered how our ancestors discovered the healing properties of the willow tree. I have not found the answer to that question. However, I can say that it has been discovered that the bark and leaves, when properly processed by an expert, can provide relief from a variety of symptoms, such as headache and fever. In fact, a French chemist isolated a component of the bark's chemical structure and synthetically produced aspirin. Yes, our well-known headache remedy of today. Here at slide 5, we see a basic drawing of the steps taken to produce teas and tinctures remedies. It is a process that is undertaken only by expert herbalists and should not be attempted by the average person. With that said, I found it absolutely amazing that a beautiful tree could provide such an important early remedy for us. Please enjoy the slide presentation and explore on your own what herbal remedies have been produced by herbalists over hundreds of years throughout many cultures. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Richmond, and I'd like to introduce another important topic of our IndusTREE exhibit, the central role that wood and wood products played in communication, commerce, and transportation. We have selected just a few highlights from our online exhibit. From earliest times, prior to European settlement, wood played an important role in the lives of Native Americans. One important illustration of this was the watercraft of the Mohawk Nation of the Iroquois Confederacy. The men and women of these tribes constructed canoes with hardwood ribs covered with tree bark and used them to travel from their villages on the Mohawk River to seasonal camps along the rivers and streams of Saratoga County in their annual cycle of fishing, hunting, and trading. In this exhibit, we will display a birch bark canoe provided by Endakana Education Center in Greenfield Center. The cottage industries and small wood-based businesses of Saratoga County were soon joined by the large-scale harvesting of timber from the vast forests of the Adirondacks to the north. Beginning in the mid-1800s, annual log drives down the Hudson River fed the growing number of paper mills of the county. To the north, the International Paper Company's mill in Corinth was the first large-scale paper mill along the Hudson River. In the central section of the county, many pulp and paper mills sprung up along the Caderos Creek and in Ballston Spa, many owned by George West, who became known as the Paper Bag King. Farther south along the Hudson River, the vast complex of the Westvaco plant in Mechanicville dominated. Together, these mills provided employment to thousands of local workers during their heyday in the late 19th century. Our exhibit will tell their story.
My name is Rachel Clothier. I'm a historian for the town of Corinth. I'm going to talk about cottage industries, smaller businesses that were throughout Saratoga County that used the lumber industry. One of them, in the community of Bachelorville in the town of Edinburgh, was a washboard factory. They made washboards that had a metal zinc side and a wooden side. Lucian DeGolia is the owner of that patent. He employed over 30 men. They sawed up over 5,000 logs of spruce and beech each year. They made about 3 railroad car loads of washboards per week and shipped out from Bachelorville. One time he shipped over 500 dozen, that's 6,000 washboards to New York City. They were called the Girls' Delight. Hay rakes and wooden clothespins were also made in Edinburgh and sent throughout the United States. Logging and lumbering were conducted throughout the 1800s into the 1900s. Logs were cut north of here, sent down the rivers, and eventually made their way to the Hudson River. Log marking hammers would be used to stamp a design in the end of a log, and it would tell who owned those logs. They were sent down the river and ended up in Corinth and also over at Moreau at boom areas where huge chains were used to hold back the thousands and millions sometimes of logs. They were then sorted and sent to the proper mills that each log was supposed to go to. In an 1892 newspaper article, it told about a log jam on the Hudson River. 13-foot logs had been sent down from the Indian River area into the Hudson. They jammed up at Corinth and covered the entire river in this area for a mile. They raised the river 7 inches and were packed in every conceivable position as deep as the river and as high as 10 feet above the water.
We're going to talk a bit about how many of the oldest houses in this region were constructed by early settlers. This is just a quick preview, so be sure to check out the full online exhibit on the website. Some of the first buildings in this area in the 1700s were small cabins like these that stood in the northern part of Saratoga County in and around Corinth. Trees were both an important natural resource and also an obstacle for farmers. They needed the wood for building homes, barns, fences, tools, and for heating their homes. But the process of chopping down trees to open up the land for fields and pastures was time-consuming and could be dangerous as well. As time went on, larger framed structures were built using timber frame construction methods. In fact, the building that is now Brookside Museum was built using these techniques in 1792. Some of the tools used to prepare the logs and transform them into squared-off beams include tools like these, a broadaxe and adze. The manufacture of these tools was an important Saratoga County industry, and many tools like these were made by Isaiah and Sylvester Blood at their factory along the Cateros Creek in Ballston Spa. All of these metal tools also needed wooden handles, which was another important local industry. Looking at the beams in very old buildings, you can often see the marks of early tools, like the broadaxe and sometimes the adze. The broadaxe was used for squaring or hewing the round logs into squared beams. For beams that might show in early homes, the adze was used to smooth the surface and remove some of the marks left by the broadaxe. Looking around in barns and in the cellars and attics of some early houses, you may even see that the bark was left on some of the tree trunks. To secure some of the timbers together, builders used wooden pegs. Today, nails or screws are the most common way to attach timbers together, but these wooden pegs could be made right at the job site with a tool called a draw shave. This sharp knife with 2 wooden handles would be used to shape a stick of wood to the desired diameter. For the next step, either a bit and brace or a boring machine would be used to drill holes in the timbers. The bit and brace is a hand-powered version of a drill. The boring machine is similar to a modern drill press and could be adjusted to drill at an angle. This was a major innovation that improved efficiency and saved time during construction. A large mallet like this was used to hammer the wooden pegs into the timbers to hold them in place. Occasionally, the peg might be split and a small wedge put in to better hold it in place. Here are some examples of how pegs look in early structures. These are frequently visible in early barns, where some were sheared off, while others were left protruding, leaving a handy place to hang up harnesses, equipment, or tools. Be sure to look for examples of early houses, barns, and other structures in your community. And remember the hard work that went into building these long before power tools existed.
Hello, I'm Paul Perrault, historian in the town of Malta in Saratoga County. The use and management of the forest resources in Saratoga County go back to our earliest settlers. While active in the harvesting of our forest, Saratoga County residents have long been a part of the effort to sustain this valuable resource. Some of our founding families, the Seaberrys in Galway, the Curtis and Streever families in Boston, and the Luthers in Malta, and even Philip Schuyler in Old Saratoga, have used the forest to support their families while still nurturing and preserving them for generations to come. Every town in the county had such a family, and by 1790, each town had a sawmill that turned the surrounding forests into building materials for local use. Manufacturing in virtually every village depended to some extent on the county's woodlots. Wagon and sleigh builders, cabinet and coffin makers, canal boat and bridge builders, even clothespins required more and more wood for the fabrication and fuel. Late in the 19th century, concern began to mount, both nationally and locally, about the use or misuse of the resource. In 1890, Gifford Pinchot, a friend of Teddy Roosevelt, founded the Society of American Foresters, and this attracted the attention of Colonel William Fox. Born in Ballston Spa in 1840, Fox was a twice-wounded Civil War hero who joined the family lumber business after studying scientific forestry in Germany. In 1891, he was appointed New York State's first superintendent of forests. At about the same time, New York State created the Adirondack Park, a 6 million acre protected area. 2 years later, this area was given, quote, forever wild protection in the state's constitution. Fox was also influential in creating the first college of forestry in our nation at Cornell University in 1898. Other of Fox's important accomplishments were to create the modern Corps of Forest Rangers and to establish state-owned tree nurseries, one of which at Saratoga Springs is named for him. He also appointed Clifford Pettus as an assistant in 1902. Pettus would become known as the father of reforestation, as well as a great friend of the Luther family of Malta. Thomas Clement Luther, who was also born in Ballston Spa, and the Luther and Fox families were very close. By 1898, he was a successful businessman who owned the popular White Sulphur Spring Hotel on the shore of Saratoga Lake. When he purchased the hotel, it came with a sawmill, and he began buying lumber from the local farmers. Eventually, he purchased their land also. And from this start until his death in 1937, he and his son, Thomas F. Luther, who was also a graduate of the Cornell School of Forestry, put together a 7,000-acre preserve in the towns of Malta and Stillwater that became the largest privately owned preserve in the country. They planted over 10 million white, red, Scotch, and Riga pine trees. Both the New York State Conservation Department and the Cornell School maintained experimental stations at this site, and Luther Forest drew attention from around the world and was visited by experts from many countries. Today, Luther Forest is the home of over 1,700 families, the Luther Forest Tech Campus, the Global Foundries Nanotech plant, a satellite campus of Hudson Valley Community College, and beautiful walking trails and recreational fields. Today's residents of Saratoga County owe a great deal to the families who harvested and sustained this wonderful resource of our forest.